Hello, everyone. My name is Zvonimir, and I'm a tech lead at Noubis, which is a digital service agency, which means we basically help businesses find their success on various different platforms, be it Elixir, be it React, Next.js, stuff like that. And me personally, I became a big fan of Elixir about three to 4 years ago when I first discovered it, and since then I've been pushing for Elixir more and more, where it can actually solve some real world problems. Now, my talk is going to be about error handling in Elixir, which is an interesting topic, especially for people who are coming from different style of languages, be it imperative, object-oriented, stuff like that. Most of some of my colleagues who I've successfully converted to Elixir had some trouble understanding how it all works, because they've been brought up religiously on try-catch and stuff like that. And now we do have stuff like that in Elixir, don't get me wrong, but there is a much cleaner way, which you will find is actually a blessing. So let me quickly share my screen with you. All right. Okay, now just verify if the screen is visible, please. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I prepared a little experimental script here for everyone, and so no presentation this time. First things first, we have like a common module which does something, does matter, and there are two types of let's say conventions in Elixir. You'll notice that those functions who will raise an error, which is somewhat equivalent to exceptions in other languages, they are typically marked with an exclamation mark denoting that they might throw something. It's not always the case, but in my honest experience, I found it to be like a convention. And on the other hand, we have an error tuple, which is basically a tuple of two elements. One is an atom, and the second one is actually the result. The closest thing I could find to this is maybe option, I think, in Rust, which can either be okay or error. Now I have an example of bad and good. Now, first things first, let me actually zoom in a little bit. All right, so it'll work just the same on the end, but yeah, let's actually increase the font size. Is this better? Okay, cool. So let me actually move the laptop a little bit so I can see the chat better. So yeah, both of these will require code from the common. Now, this, in my opinion, is a very bad, not very bad, but somewhat bad way to do it, because what if we have like tons of these? We will just end up with a nested try rescue block, which in my opinion will just cause the code quality to suffer. Now, a good way is, so first things first, I have generated a random Boolean, which will tell me if the error will be thrown or not. Now, in Elixir, we could use like pattern matching, for example. But if the match fails, it'll still throw a match error, forcing you to go down this route of try this, rescue from a match error. And in my opinion, it's just much better to handle that with a with statement, which will try to match. And if it doesn't, it'll go to the else block, where you can pattern match again. So, so for example, this random Boolean, if I don't know, force it to be success, let me actually just comment this code out so so that it doesn't run. Okay, so the initial, just ignore this. So you can see that it did a great success. Now, if I put in false, it's an error. Now, if you remembered, I also had a third case, which will handle basically anything else I throw at it. So if I do something, I don't know, anything else, let's try and see how this goes. Uh-oh. So yeah, in the end, we still need to match everything to make sure that we don't get an error, but it's much cleaner in a sense that with error tuples, we can match on that first element and have like a proper reason why something failed. So I don't know, let's say great WTF. And also, if I don't like this, I could basically go like this. Now, let's quickly uncomment this. Also in Elixir, it's possible to use the case statement, which some people find cleaner. The true power of the with statement actually lies in chaining multiple results together. So for example, I'll just write some non-existent code here. So for example, let's say I expect this to return OK. OK, then I expect this to return an error. And I don't know, I expect this to return a WTF. All right. And let's actually make sure that there's difference. Oh. Okay. So you'll see that as far as we follow this like a train track, and if it works wonderfully. But if we encounter any deviations from this match, we'll get thrown this. We'll get thrown here. And also, with is more powerful, in my opinion, because I could simply do when this reason is binary. And we live in a crazy world where data might not be something that we expect, even Even the documentation might be wrong. Trust me, I've been there, and it's a horrible experience to be the first one to find it out. But with this simpler approach of relying on functional patterns and let's say railway-oriented programming, it's simply easier to handle errors, and in the long run, the code looks much cleaner. Now, I could do something like this. True. Something, I don't know. Something. But here's where the elephant in the room lies. Let's say both of these throw a same error. With a rescue statement, I can put in, let's say this is a match error. But here's where it gets tricky. How will I know which one of these triggered the error? I could obviously debug it, but in my opinion, it's simply much cleaner to just have like an error tuple and I don't know, some kind of string, and we can even do something like this, where we match on the same first element, but different second element. Like this. This will work. And also, one thing that you should keep in mind, it does match from top to bottom. So the first thing you put in the like match, it'll match with the first one. So that's something you should keep in mind. And that's like the very raw power of with statements. All right. So yeah, you could also use if unless. I'm just throwing examples. Yeah, the matching would not work because if we look at the common, it'll just always throw an error. I could theoretically throw in another parameter to make sure that I could control the error, but it was just an example. No worries. Yeah. So you could also do if unless, but from what I've somewhat gathered, if unless suffers from the same fate as try do, because let's say we have, I don't know, result, reason, common error tuple, random Boolean, we would need to nest that as well. And we would just end up with a long list of having everything nested. So I tend to avoid it if I could. I like to have an error pattern in the system and always use with, do, end without the else and handle. Yeah, that's also a very valid reason approach. Yeah, it's actually also good. Yeah, you could handle it somewhere else for that matter. And with a language as powerful as Elixir, with supervisors and everything, you can just let it crash and do its thing. So yeah, that's completely a valid approach. And yeah, this is just me showing an example of an if, which basically is a one-liner. I just use, not sure if. Yeah, you could use it. You could use inspect. This is just an example. I'm mostly in my day-to-day job, I don't really log things to the console unless I'm developing it. we mainly handle errors and just send them to a sentry. So sentry takes care of the error for us. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted this to be a short talk because I wanted to hear more from the audience how you handle errors and engage in thoughtful discussion with you. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, this code is available on my GitHub, which I will shamelessly plug into the chat in a second. Just let me just quickly copy the link.
I'm actually turning on the Q&A mode right now. So Zvonimir, you can in the meantime you can obviously react to some discussion that's already been going on in the chat, and the Q&A mode is on. So once you guys put your questions in the Q&A chat, we will be showing them in the middle and letting Zvonimir react to them. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So. Okay.
So just from the top, we have a note from Max. I think that was about a specific moment in the presentation. Then we have a note from Bernardo.
Okay, so I'm seeing the questions right now. So then you can log to a file. Yeah, sure, you could, but writing to a file takes up quite some time, and I tend to just stay away from it. I mainly rely on Elixir's built-in logger module, which you can easily configure in config.exs. Yeah, just set level under info. Yeah, that's exactly what we could do. Isn't it better to return tuple with 2 atoms, for example, error not found, and then write the reason handler function? Yeah, it actually is, and it's something that I do because it's much easier to match atoms than strings. And yeah, it's a completely valid approach, and I like it better, actually. I just wrote this as a throwaway piece of code, so it's pretty much the same. You can match to a number if you wanted to, but there is a limit for amount of atoms allowed in strings. Yes, that is true. There is a limit for a number of atoms, but I don't think you'll ever gonna reach that limit unless you allow users to arbitrarily create atoms by providing them with an input that would create an atom. And even if you do, you could use the string to dynamic to existing atom, which will actually convert the string to an atom, but only if it already exists. And generally, you don't want to generate dynamic atoms, as Bernardo said.
Maybe that's a question for us. Why do we use React if there is live view? Where something live view is still not good at, and probably never will be, is any applications which need a mobile component. Obviously, there is something named Live View Native in the works, which is kind of promising, but basically any mobile application needs to be well responding to situations where connectivity is being lost for a moment, for a longer moment, and so on. So at times it's about that, because with live view it would be a lot of work and a lot of repetition to make this work offline. And the whole point of using live view is not to do this kind of repetitions where it's not needed. And at other times, just totally honestly, it's about the composition of teams, because it's sometimes it's just very easy to to get an Elixir backend specialist, to get a React and JavaScript specialist, especially if there is a prospect of maybe also developing a mobile application in React Native as well. So this is another reason that we might still turn to React at times. It's just about using the best tool for a specific job. Okay, we have a question from Grayson. What is the best way to deploy? And this is probably a very general one, but probably you are talking about general best practices about deploying Elixir applications. So maybe it would be good for you, Zvonimir, to just share your brief thoughts about this.
Yeah, sure. So basically, as far as our deployments go, we aren't strangers to any cloud solutions like AWS, Fly.io. One thing we didn't try was Elixir, but you could probably just go with Docker. I mean, it's very easy to set it up. Another way to deploy is obviously Elixir releases, but we didn't really touch on that too much. So yeah, it really depends. I would have to say that out of all of those like cloud solutions, Fly.io is really the one that really works out of the box. So that's like my personal favorite. Which
Yeah, it was made with Phoenix applications in mind, so
yeah,
that's probably the reason.
I think
We've had some, yeah.
Chris actually is involved in it. So yeah.
Yeah, we've had some experience with Elixir. It was 3 years ago, so I cannot really speak for the current situation, but we've had reliability issues with them. So that's kind of I would say it's a project that I would trust for non-critical applications, so to speak, maybe experimental. Maybe the reliability has got better over time, and I'm pretty sure and aware that every platform as a service solution has its own reliability issues from time to time.
Yeah.
But it's how it is. And something that might surprise you is that we've had a number of quite big customers who actually have experienced a lot of success and happiness using Heroku for even quite large scale applications used by hundreds of thousands of users. Basically, that's the magnitude. It obviously has its own limitations that you need to be aware of, and back some some communication mechanisms with Redis or whatnot at times. But obviously, if you want to scale it, it's quite expensive. But oftentimes, it happens that it's not as expensive as hiring a team of DevOps people who need to deal with the entire AWS solutions and so on. So
Yeah.
that's interesting, because there is sometimes a feeling that Heroku is just disqualified straight from the start of a project, and probably it doesn't need to be the case. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
Right.
Heroku got some bad rep for having a free tier, which they removed in the end, because you could like easily spin up some not so benevolent stuff. So maybe that's why Heroku got its bad rep.
Yeah, it's probably the free tier was the reason they got so popular in the first place.
Yeah.
For quite some time, but over time it has backfired on their reputation a bit.
Mm.
Yeah, so the next question comes from Bernardo. When should you use error modules with def exception to handle errors?
Okay, so with error modules with def exception to handle errors. So I personally never use this, like absolutely never, because I admire simplicity and introducing custom errors and stuff like that. It just mainly, in my opinion, dirties up the code base. And maybe if you're creating a library and you want to make sure that people who use your library can match on your library specific errors, but I personally never use it. Never had a use case for it. I just I I rely on my trusty old error tuples, because to be honest, they never let me down.
Yeah, something I can think of is that when you actually use this mechanism of defining custom exceptions, what you get out of the box is nice error messages in the console,
Yeah.
which if you stick to just the tuples, which is obviously nice for dialyzer and so on, but if you for whatever reason don't handle something properly, you get match errors, which is not which is probably very verbose and contains a lot
Yeah.
of potential clutter in the messages. So that's maybe one single reason I can think of.
Yeah, but even with dialyzer will warn you if you forgot
Yeah.
to match something. So I personally never use this.
Yeah, dialyzer is like when you actually forget to, for example, handle an exception, it's pretty cryptic, because it tends to tell you that this function has no local return, and you get to wonder what it actually is that causes this. So
Yeah.
yeah. Another question from Christian. You mentioned Logger before. Can you tell us more about it, how to use it, and best practices?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Logger is in the standard library. You just require it, and you can call logger.info, logger.warn, logger.error, stuff like that, logger.debug. And how it basically works is you have like a log level, and you can define it in your config to like ignore certain to, for example, in dev environment, you obviously don't want to hide anything. You want even the debug messages to show up. But in production, you might need to hide some of those, because they might expose sensitive data in the logs, which some people tend to overlook. and logs can be quite dangerous if you don't handle them properly. Now, as far as best practices goes, I would say don't expose any more data than you need to. So try to avoid logging API keys or any other sensitive data.
Yeah, there was a mention of inspecting earlier in the chat, and I think that's also something you might want to log or not, depending on where the log actually lands afterwards, because you obviously don't want to inspect stuff into HTML HTTP responses.
Yeah, definitely not.
For loggers, it depends, but basically, if you can't think of any other way to present the data other than just inspecting this, then it's always better to use anything else than inspect.
Yeah, that is true. And and it's actually very easy to set up. I think by default Phoenix configures it anyway. So it's in Elixir. It's really hard to make something unsecure. It's very hard because in my experience, most of the code you write is I don't want to say secure by default, because nothing is secure by default, but you're less likely to get hacked, which is a great thing. And yeah, what are the best practices for environment variables? Okay, so coming from other languages, you're probably used to storing them in .env, but in Elixir it's a bit different. What I usually do is, and this is what Phoenix does anyway, when you generate a new project, you have a configuration for dev environment, test environment, and production. And if you go into the production configuration, you'll see that it already expects those in the environment. Now, you could theoretically load it. There is a package, if I'm not mistaken, for it. But to be honest, you could just probably make sure that on your production you have all the necessary environment variables already stored in the environment and not in the file.
Something worth mentioning is probably the distinction between compile time and runtime variables.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because if you actually populate those from your environment, then it often happens that you have a compile time variable which gets its value from the environment, and you change it in your env. You expect this to be changed in the application, and you get to wonder why it doesn't. And
Yeah.
this is something I've been thinking of many times about how to establish an actual best practice. And my personal recommendation that I use for any projects that I oversee at Curiosum is that let's totally ditch if anything's actually configurable from the outside, like from envs or whatever else, just ditch it from the standard dev exs, prod exs, and so on files, and just put this in the runtime configuration.
Yeah.
Because it provides quite a lot of confusion for people trying to figure out what's going on. The worst case scenario is where it's actually configured in both compile time and runtime. It leads to ridiculous situations when it happens.
Yeah. I tend to keep it consistent wherever I can.
Yeah, And I think that the specification of the 12-factor app, which used to be quite popular concept, at least some time ago, it says that in the ideal scenario, their environment should be actually the single source of truth about the configuration of environments, because all environments should be as similar to each other as possible. And it's kind of imaginable that we totally drop the notion of dev, prod, and whatever else, and just use the environment for defining what we want to have. For example, if we want to have a configuration of databases for parallel testing, then obviously it can be configured via environment variables. If we want to configure mailers in a specific way, we can have a switch in the environment. So this is something worth thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have a heated discussion. Someone's typing, so yeah, let's hope for more questions coming in soon.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, maybe a question for me in the meantime.
Sure.
What are your favorite means to actually track application errors throughout the team? Like, do you use Sentry or AppSignal or any other tools like that?
Yeah, we use both. It depends, actually. Sometimes it's Sentry, sometimes it's AppSignal. If we mostly stick to Sentry because everyone is actually like familiar with it. To be
Yeah,
honest.
sometimes there are some concerns about data privacy regulations, because Sentry is, I think, US based. I don't know if it has European servers available. You can obviously self-host it, but it's usually not an option for most cloud-based solutions. So that's probably the main concern we've experienced with that, because just usage-wise, it's perfect. So that's maybe one thing that can be less than ideal with that. Yeah, we have another question from Dmitro. Let's say we have this module with function and it fails, and we import this module to another one and call a function from that module in the new one. What will be the best way to handle an error in this case?
Well, to be honest, it depends. Always, it always depends. But in this case, I would probably just go with a simple case statement. And if it's like okay, it's okay. If it's not, do something else.
All right, thank you very much. Someone's still typing, so let's take in another question.
Also, this code seems familiar because because I wrote something similar for the Tenantee project, which I'll have to maintain at some point. I had to like scale way down on maintaining that personal project because I'm just too busy at work. So yeah, there are lots of stuff I could fix in that code base.
Yeah, I think it's always the case with personal projects that you maintain.
Oh, it was from Tenantee. Called it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one from Bernardo. Depending on how you treat the get function, it can return null.
Yeah, that is true. And if I recall correctly, I think that I actually put in a check in the get function if it returns null to return an error tuple.
All right.
So yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are there any further questions to Zvonimir or maybe to me? Yeah, someone is typing again.
Mhm.
We will conclude the Q&A session at 7 p.m. Unless there is obviously no further questions in the meantime. So yeah. Thank you very much for your nice words, Dmitro.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I'm actually gonna sign up for the next meetup as well. So, but that one will be like more of a lighthearted look at this dumb thing I made.
Yeah, this is all topics are appreciated, I guess. We have a pretty broad range of topics covered.
Mhm.
How do you restrict pages based on referrer? A question from Grayson.
You could probably just go with a plug, to be honest. I like to keep things simple. In the words of Terry Davis, the guy who created Temple OS, a genius admires simplicity. So as simple as you can write it, it's way more easier to understand because you will go back to that code base maybe a week later. Yeah, I'm not calling anyone an idiot who admires the complexity. But yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that because you will get back to that code base sometime later. Maybe it's going to be a week, maybe a month, maybe 5 years, doesn't matter. And you will be very grateful to yourself that you wrote it in a simple and elegant, easy to read way.
Yeah, and probably worth noting is that it's rather not a perfect idea to do
Yeah,
this kind of checks based on the referrer because some browsers are even going as far as disabling this feature by default.
yeah. I mean, you could never trust the user. That is true, but the question was how you do it, not if you should do it, and you should obviously not.
Yeah.
There was actually a vulnerability in some WordPress plugin that my school was using, where they actually checked the refer to make sure it matched the site, and if it did, you could basically just send arbitrary emails through their own SMTP server. So that was a disaster. Luckily, I found it before anyone else did. But yeah, imagine that disaster if you just start getting spam emails from a school website.
Yeah, that's something everyone would like to avoid. Someone's typing again. So if you allow uploads, then how do you make them not accessible from the public? Another one from Grayson.
Um, well, if you're allowing uploads without refer, yeah, sure. So basically, you could just not include. You could just remove the route that would like return the file, or you could have like a access token, which you would verify, for example, JVT, and you can verify if this particular person has access to the file. This is more related to like who has access to what, but yeah, basically just make sure that everything that shouldn't be accessible to the public is locked down under I typically use JVTs, so they're pretty secure, to be honest, and very easy to validate. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. All right.
All right. It took me some time to just turn the microphone back on. Yeah. So you guys have 6 minutes left to ask any further questions, but if there is no, if there are no more questions, then we will just jump into concluding the meetup. So we're still waiting for further questions in the Q&A chat, but it seems that nobody is typing anymore. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much, Zvonimir, for your talk today. We greatly appreciate your engagement with this Elixir meetup again, and obviously we also invite you to participate in the next ones, as well as to stay with us after the meetup in the Discord server that I keep posting links to in the chat from time to time, because we encourage all the speakers to remain with us there and ask your questions that you might have afterwards. So thank you very much, Zvonimir. That's it for this particular meetup. We again invite you to participate in Curiosum's annual Elixir survey that you can find a link to in the chat as well. And in the upcoming meetup number 24, our speaker is going to be Sigu Magua, known to some of you perhaps from the CodeBeam conference, a community lover, software writer, team builder. The topic is still to be announced, but I'm sure it's going to be a great talk. So thank you very much, Zvonimir. And you guys have an opportunity to rate this meetup right now. So kindly please stay with us just for another moment. And we will now present you with a brief survey that you can use to rate the meetup and as well as the speaker. So thank you very much for being with us, and see you next month.